everybody. So this is just a quick overview of some of the things that I noticed when I was reading through the drafts of your division and classification essay. So as we go through the slides, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that I saw, and this may not necessarily apply to all of you. If you want to see whether this applies to you, a good way to do that is to go back and look at the feedback that I provided. Because chances are, if you were making one of these mistakes, I probably told you about it in your feedback. But it's also something that just can be helpful for your learning. You can see some of the things that, even if I didn't say it to you, that maybe I was looking for as I was reading through. And even those of you who didn't necessarily receive feedback about these specific issues might want to look at how you've done these things in your essay and see, oh, she didn't comment on this, I must have done it right. So what did I do? How did I do it right? So it still gives you a way to kind of reflect on your own writing and think about what you did well, in addition to what you maybe need to work on a little bit. So the first and most important thing is that you need to make sure that your essay is on topic. I cannot stress this enough because this is one of only 2 ways to earn a 0 on an assignment from me. I typically don't give out really low grades. So there are only 2 things you can do to get a 0 on an assignment from me unless you just don't hand it in. One of those things is plagiarism, and if you're doing that, you already know about it because I've already talked to you about it. So if I haven't said something to you about that, don't worry about it. But the other way is writing something that's off topic. One of the biggest things that's a responsibility on you as a student is to make sure that you're reading through your essay prompts and also looking at the materials that are posted online and the materials that are included in your textbook. When I make an assignment, I assume that you're looking at all of those things before you proceed to write, because all of those things are available to you. So for example, even if you look through the materials online and you feel like, I still don't really think I understand this, take a look at the bit in your textbook that talks about the kind of essay that we're writing. We're always going to be writing essays that are included in the textbook. So you can look there for help. If you look at the textbook and online and you still feel a little bit confused, it's okay to ask me and say, I don't really feel like I understand what this is about. That's part of what I'm here for, is to clarify those things for you, but I can't know that you have those questions unless you ask, right? I have a few people who wrote essays that in another context for another assignment would be perfectly valid essays. Later on, we're going to be writing persuasive essays where you argue something for your audience. You try to convince them to believe a certain thing about the world or to take a certain stance on a debatable subject. One example of that is legalization of marijuana, reasons why marijuana should be legalized. So a few of you wrote essays that would make great persuasive essays, but a persuasive essay is not a division and classification. Dividing something into reasons is not really a division and classification. It's an act of persuasion. At that point, you're trying to convince somebody to agree with you about something. And that's not what this assignment is about. This assignment is about taking a subject and trying to understand that subject better, or teach the reader something about that subject by dividing it into different categories. So genres of film, right? There are many different kinds of movies in the world, but you can understand a little bit more about movies if you recognize that frequently they're divided into different categories based on the content of the movie or the way that the movie is directed or the things it's trying to accomplish. That's an example of division and classification. If you're visiting New Orleans for the first time, there are tons of different types of foods that are available to you. You can make better choices about what you want to eat and what you want to see while you're in New Orleans if you know the different types of food that are available to you. That would be a division and classification. Another example that I saw is things that were more like descriptive essays or instructional essays. So students who are saying, here are 3 things that you need to do to be a success in school. All right, well, that would be good for another essay topic, but that's not a division and classification essay. You're not dividing anything, you're not classifying things. You're really giving tips to the reader, and that's not what this essay is about. So just because you can write 3 paragraphs doesn't mean that you've divided and classified. So I want you to really think about what division and classification is about and make sure that you're on topic. This is something that if you weren't doing it, I definitely told you that in your feedback. I said very directly to you, I don't understand how this fits the assignment. In some cases, I might have given you suggestions for how you could work on a similar topic, but make it fit within the assignment. So if you have questions about that, if I gave you this feedback and you think, do I have to abandon this topic altogether? Feel free to email me and ask some follow-up questions. The next important point I wanted to make is that in your body paragraphs, I want you to really work on providing detail. Remember that what you're trying to do is educate the reader about your subject. And you can't really do that if all you're doing is listing things that fall within the category. Providing a list doesn't really help me understand how a category is defined. So, for example, if I write about genres of movies, which is one of the examples I just gave you in the previous slide, I might divide my work into horror films, romantic comedies, and documentaries. That these are 3 really popular types of films right now. So if I'm going to do this, I can't just write a paragraph about horror films saying, you know, one of the genres of film is horror films. These films include Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Stephen King's It, and Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. All of these movies are considered horror because they're very scary, period. So all 3 of those movies are really different. They might all fall into the genre of horror film, but they're all very, very different. And so if my reader reads that and sees that list of things, they're going to say, well, I don't understand horror films any better than I did before, because these are all really different movies that do different things. So what defines a horror film? So you have to make sure that you're defining and describing your category for your reader. There are a few of you who are writing essays about different types of music, genres of music. Some of you guys fell into this trap, right, where you were like, here are all the different songs that count as rap songs. And that's a good thing to include. Or here are all the different songs that count as country songs, or artists who count as country artists, or artists who count as pop music artists. And those are good things to include. It's good to give examples. There's nothing wrong with examples. You just have to make sure that you also include some information so that I understand, well, when you tell me that all of these singers are R&B singers, what do they have in common? What defines the category of R&B that unites all of these different singers together? So just make sure that you're really working on the details. Don't just list things. The next one is making sure that your topic sentences are doing a job within your essay. So topic sentence, to review, is the first sentence of your body paragraph. And your topic sentence is like a mini argument. It's the thing that tells your reader, here's what I'm going to be doing in this body paragraph. Here's what I'm going to present to you. This is a very common problem with this essay, and I actually wish I had mentioned it to you earlier, so I apologize for not making this more clear sooner. So I wanted to make it clear to you now. One of the traps that people fall into with this essay is, well, I'm breaking my essay down into 3 subtopics, right? So all I really need to do in my topic sentence is list which of the 3 things I'm going to be talking about in that paragraph. So the example sentence I have here is, the first type of films is horror films, okay, to use my example that I was using earlier. So say that I am writing a paper where I'm dividing and classifying types of film. And I say the first type of films is horror films. Okay, I mean, that's fine. It tells me that this paragraph is going to be about horror films, but this sentence is not trying very hard, right? It's not really doing very much work. This sentence is just sitting there, and it's not doing much for the reader. It's essentially just listing, here's the first thing I'm going to talk about. So in your final drafts, as you work a little harder on your essays, try to think about how to make your topic sentence do some work. So what if instead of saying the first type of films is horror films, I try to think about well, what is it that I'm really going to say about horror films in my essay? Well, I'm going to say that the big purpose of horror films, the thing that unites all of them together, is that they're trying to terrify their audience. They want to be scary. So instead, I could write a sentence like this one. I'm not very good at drawing on my screen. I could write a sentence that says, one genre of film, the horror movie, is created for one purpose. It's there to terrify its audience. Look how much harder that sentence is trying. That sentence is doing a lot more work than the previous sentence. It's very specific about what I'm going to accomplish in that paragraph. And so I want you to think about doing that with your topic sentence. And my final point is really think about what you're trying to accomplish in this essay. What is it that you want your reader to understand about this subject, and why are you talking about it in the first place? I mean, I know that arbitrarily you may have chosen a topic just because this is a school assignment and you have to do it. But in the world of writing, you're going to run into all kinds of instances where somebody is making you write something and you don't really want to. Happens all the time. Happens to me at work. It happens to everybody at work. So you're still going to have to think beyond, well, I'm doing this because it was assigned to me, right? There's still a reason why you want to talk to your audience about this subject. So think about, when you're writing your introductions, think about why this subject is important, and really use that introduction to establish your goals. So if you're talking about different types of movies, what can the reader get out of learning about different types of movies? Well, one of the things that they can get is they can do a better job of finding the movies that are best suited to their personality. Or I gave the example earlier of an essay that divides and classifies the different types of food available to people in New Orleans. So maybe if I'm writing that essay, I'm trying to help my reader better decide where they'd like to go eat. So what do you want to give to your audience? I think that sometimes when we're writing essays for school, you tend to fall into this trap of thinking you're writing into a void, right? You don't think about an audience or a reader. But anytime you write something, you should think about your reader. Writing is all about reader psychology. What do I want my reader to get from this essay? And I know that that's hard when you're just writing something that's going to me, and I'm the only one who's going to see it, and you don't really know me. So imagine a different audience. Imagine that you're writing for somebody specific, somebody who needs this information. If they need it, why do they need it? What do they need to know about it, and what's important? So really think about trying to use your introduction to establish your goals. So those are the things that I noticed the most as I was going through your essays. And so I hope that this helps you some. And that it allows you to get a better sense of the things that you can do as you move into the final draft. But as you're working on them, and remember they're not due until Wednesday of this coming week, so you still have a lot of time. As you're working on them, if you think of questions, feel free to email me. If you want to set up a phone conference to talk through your topic, you can do that. Just let me know if there's anything particular you guys need. All right.